I found an article after filming the first half of this documentary that places exactly where Marguerite was the day her father fell ill and then passed. Although initially being on set wrapping up on another feature film, Trumpet Island, and filming with Fairbanks for his new feature, Marguerite, along with many other stars such as Marjorie Daw, Agnes Ayres, Ben Turpin, and Faye Tincher, had taken a flight from San Francisco to Oakland so they could attend the first National Day. They participated in a parade and special ceremonies in the ballpark. This means as her father passed, she was unable to be by his bedside, possibly not even knowing the situation. This may be why her name is not on his death certificate and why she wasn't there. Marguerite during this time also had to deal with the growing rumors about her love life. It magazine was one of the first, and in a few sentences made the accusation as salacious as it could be for the 1920s. Antrim Short, it was rumored, married Marguerite de la Motte. Both, however, deny the rumor. If it were true, one could say something about a little short before long, but then, since it isn't true, one can't. Can one? They were trying to get the readers to read between the lines, as it were, and they didn't make it that hard. Of course, they were trying to lead the reader to the conclusion that they got married, so there wouldn't be a scandal of a baby being born out of wedlock. This was a ludicrous story, but it no doubt helped sell their magazines. Even back then, newspapers loved to create sensationalism out of fiction, not fact. Marguerite had friends from the studios, and Antrim was one of them. There is no proof they even dated, again, only rumors. And of course, that little snippet got picked up by other publications of the time. Even the LA Times, in their rumor section, going as so far as having a reporter try to contact her. Just a rumor? Despite the emphatic denial of even such a thing as an engagement, that rumor about a marriage between Antrim Short and Marguerite de la Motte will continue to bob up on every occasion. Both are picture players of promise. When I rang up Miss de la Motte's residence last evening, that young lady stated absolutely and positively that there was nothing to it. Then she coyly asked me whether I wanted to hear Mr. Short's denial too. "Oh yes, he's here, just over for dinner," she said, in answer to my query. Then Mr. Short came to the phone and dutifully denied the rumor of the marriage and the engagement in the most emphatic and categorical terms. But if you are interested, the truth is to keep a close watch on those Santa Ana marriage licenses. Personal opinion here, maybe just maybe, seeing as they were bothering her only 13 days after the death of her father, perhaps she was still in mourning? And Antrim was a good friend who was there comforting her. But of course, that wouldn't sell as many papers as a rumor of marriage and possible hidden pregnancy. Dealing with the loss of yet another family member and growing rumors didn't slow Marguerite down. She was constantly on the film set and in between doing promotional stunts for the studio. All this and still had a bit of time to do interviews. Such as this article from August 19th, where she talks about how dancing and acting are closely connected. There is a very close connection between dancing as understood through its development in the art of pantomime and motion picture acting, says Miss de la Motte. The differences are practically negligible. Of course, I don't mean by dancing just moving the feet. I mean it as an expression of life and emotion by means of the eyes, the hands, the whole expression of the face and the body. In September, Marguerite was attending the premiere of yet another one of her films when Trumpet Island would be released. It would co-star Wallace MacDonald and Hallam Cooley and is based on a short story by Gouverneur Morris. It was distributed and produced by Vitagraph and directed by Tom Terrace. Sadly, it's a lost film and it is hard to find the plot online, but I found this description from a 1920 magazine. A young man starting to dissipate a fortune left to him leaves a wild party and prevents a young girl from whom he has never met from. He falls in love with her at first sight, but her father and fiancé arrive and take her home. Later she is forced into a loveless marriage. In the meantime, the young man, to get a grip on himself, purchases an island and goes there alone. He studies and lives in a primitive manner. The girl is taken on an aerial honeymoon by her husband, who is a wealthy aviator, and they have trouble in a storm. The husband crashes down into the water. They crash down on the young man's island. He saves the girl and finds out that her mind has been affected by the fall and that she has a childlike mentality. Eventually, she recovers. The husband is cast on another island and is saved by two pirates. These two men have seen the girl and go with the husband to rescue the girl. The husband insists on taking her away from the island and starts off with her and the two men. The men attempt an attack, but the husband sees them. He holds them at bay with a gun. In order to avoid one of the men creeping upon him with a knife, the husband makes a misstep and plunges over a cliff. The young man wins. The girl, of course. It was also revealed through articles, Marguerite helped design some of her wardrobe, which wasn't her first time. She created most of her dance costumes when she was younger, and it was just natural for her to have some input in what she wore on the screen. She would also somehow find time to film the UP Trail and the Broken Gate. Both would be released end of the year. September also found Marguerite working hard to get her scenes completed in the said aforementioned film with Douglas Fairbanks. The movie was initially called The Curse of Apistrano and would take place in 1840 Los Angeles. The movie would be released in December under the new title, The Mark of Zorro. Fairbanks would play Don Diego, a young Spaniard of noble blood who returns to Southern California after being educated in Spain. He sees the oppression and cruelty under which the natives and those not favored by the Governor Alvarado, played by George Periolet, are living. Don Diego adopts a disguise, wears a mask, and has a secret entrance built into his home. He then proceeds to administer punishment to all deserving it. Being an accomplished swordsman, he leaves the mark of Z on all those he punishes. He calls himself Zorro and puts terror into all evildoers. But as Don Diego, he is a listless, unambitious caballero and the disappointment of his father. Don Diego is sent to call upon Lolita, played by Marguerite, a beautiful girl whom his father wants him to marry. But he is such an uninteresting man, she is disgusted by the sight of him. He returns to her as Zorro, and in that character woos her and wins her heart. I won't go more into the plot, as the movie thankfully does exist and can be found and enjoyed online, and I don't want to ruin it for anyone out there. Although many remakes have been made, I find the silent version just more interesting and fun. The Mask of Zorro also stars Noah Beery, Charles Hill Males, Clara McDowell, Walt Whitman, and in an uncredited role, a young boy who would grow up to be known as Milton Berle. The movie was a huge success and put Marguerite's name firmly in lights alongside Fairbanks. It is said the combination of her beauty and Fairbanks' swashbuckling heroism was magic on the screen. The year 1920 started out as one of the worst years of her life, burying her beloved mother then father, and dealing with the rumors trying to discredit her reputation. But by the end of the year, it would find Marguerite having the biggest success of her career to date. Talk about a roller coaster ride. During the filming of The Mask of Zorro, Fairbanks made a deal with Frothingham and signed Marguerite onto a short-term 4-picture contract. In the beginning of 1921, they were already well into filming their next movie, The Nut, a comedy, romance, and of course, action film. The Nut stars Fairbanks as Charlie Jackson, an eccentric young fellow who is in love with Estrel Wynn, Marguerite. She has a theory about helping poor children become good citizens by having rich people open their homes each day for the children who live in the slum. Charlie, Fairbanks, gives a party to which he has invited rich patrons in order to get them involved in the project. But due to a firework device for the party prematurely exploding, the rich guests want nothing to do with the plan. Philip Feeney, a gambler, played by William Lowry, poses as a respectable citizen, is also in love with Estrie, Marguerite. When the party fails, he offers to help Estrie with her plans. It also co-stars Maurice Hughes and the beautiful Barbara Lamar. It was co-written by Fairbanks and was produced by Douglas Fairbanks Pictures. Thankfully, another one of her films to survive. Even before The Nut hit the theaters, Fairbanks was already filming his next big production, The Three Musketeers. During filming, there came an announcement that Marguerite was engaged and would soon marry. No, not to Antrim Short, but to Mitchell Lyson. Lyson was an art director for William DeMille and had worked with him on the 1920 movie The Prince Chap. So was this just another rumor, or was it true? While on the set of The Three Musketeers, Marguerite inadvertently struck her eyeball with a curling iron. Paper said her agony was so great that she fainted. It was found by her maid. She was taken to her home on Gower Street in Hollywood, where a physician was called to alleviate her pain. He said thankfully she would not lose her eyesight, but she would be unable to work for 2 weeks to give it time to heal. Marguerite found herself growing a friendship with someone who would visit the set of Fairbanks movies, Mary Pickford. Not only was she working with one of her childhood idols, she was now friends with another one. The Three Musketeers was released in August of 1921. Starring alongside Fairbanks and Marguerite was Nigel de Brullier as Cardinal Richelieu, Eugene Pallet as Aramis, Leon Barry as Athos, George Sigmund as Porthos, Adolphe Monjou as Louis, Mary McLaren as Anne of Austria, Walt Whitman as D'Artagnan's father, and the beautiful Barbara Lamar as Milady de Winter. Marguerite was also maintaining a presence in the motion picture magazines. In one such feature article, the reporter went to her home and found himself surrounded by Oriental and Indian influences. Even incense was burning. She states in the article she had a few nicknames: Flip, Midge, and Peggy. The interviewer described her movements as elegant and childlike, and commented on how delicate her hands were. Again, a reoccurring theme. The article goes on to say she asked the reporter if he would like to hear a composition she wrote, so she got up to the piano and started to play. He said it had an Oriental influence, and Marguerite told him she called it Shattered Idols. So not only was she a talented dancer and actress, she wrote music. Although still working under her short-term contract with Fairbanks, Frothingham had her lined up for his next production. Marguerite was to play the title role in The Daughter of Brahma, where she would play Saravashti, who is betrothed to the idol of Shiva, the Destroyer. She was also slated for 3 films for Thomas H. Ince's productions, including A Man of Action with Douglas MacLean, Brotherhood of Hate with Lloyd Hughes, and Jim, with a name that would soon become an important part of her life, John Bowers. In September of 1921, it was announced that Frothingham had negotiated to have Marguerite work for him long-term through Associated Producers, the same company that was filming The Daughter of Brahma, that had its title changed to A Bride of Gods, but was now working under the title Shattered Idols. Yes, that is the same title as the composition that Marguerite wrote on the piano. No, the movie was not renamed after her composition, but there might have been talks much earlier on the movie and concept before the reporter went into the interview in her home, and she may have been inspired, or it could have been just well-planned publicity stunt. Shattered Idols would be the first of her pictures to be released in 1922 on February 6th. William V. Mong not only co-stars as Ramapal, but he helped write the screenplay. Shattered Idols would be the first of her pictures to be released in 1922 on February 6th. It also stars James Woods Morrison as David Hearst, Ethel Gray Terry as Jean Hearst, David's mother, Louise Lovely as Diana Chichester, and Canadian-born Josephine Crowell as Mrs. Chichester. The story explained from an article of the Times. David Hearst is born in India the night his father, a British Army officer, is killed while attempting to arrest a number of native seditionists. He is found dead on the doorstep of their home by David's mother. The mother secretly hates the child who is deformed and sends him to England to be educated. David returns to India and falls in love with a beautiful Hindu girl named Saraveshti, played by Marguerite, who he saves from being sacrificed in a marriage to the idol of Shiva, the destroyer. Fueled by his love for Saraveshti and his hatred of the English in the colony, thanks to his mother's hatred and rejection of him, he marries Saraveshti. Soon he inherits the title and estate from his father and is called back to England, where his mother now hopes he will divorce and marry the daughter of an army officer, Diana Chichester, who is his childhood sweetheart. When David returns to England with Saraveshti, everyone is shocked. Soon ostracized because of her nationality, Saraveshti returns to India, and David follows. Shattered Idols was the most expensive film to date that Frothingham had attempted. He even had an exact replica of a Brahmin temple constructed, which cost $40,000. Today, that money is equivalent to about $705,000. It is reported that over 1,500,000 candle power diffused on set at one time. The steps surrounding the temple supported 5,000 people. 60 5-ton truckloads of brush and vines were used. It took 30 days to construct by over 100 mechanics and carpenters. When it came to promotion of the film, some theaters spared no expense to attract patrons, as seen from this photo from the Majestic Theater in Portland. They created a false front to go with the theme, decked out the lobby and interior to continue with the India-inspired atmosphere. The theme colors were green and gold, and all decorations were hand-painted. And here we come back to Mitchell Lyson. He was nowhere seen to be at the premiere with Marguerite. So where was Mitchell? And was this just another rumor? In an early 1922 article, Marguerite in an interview confirmed she was in fact engaged to Mitchell Lyson. In the article, she says, and these are her words, "Oh yes, I'm engaged to him, but I don't think I'll get married for a while. Life is so full and I love my work, and marriage is rather a problem, isn't it?" She also mentioned she didn't expect to get married for years and years, and that youth had so much of life ahead of it. Not expecting to get married for years and years, and marriage is a problem? So what was really going on? Eventually, this relationship with Mitchell ended without much or any publicity. In fact, his name with Marguerites is never mentioned again. There doesn't seem to be any photos of them out together, and many said they were more on a friendly basis than a romantic one. In later years, it was found out that Mitchell was to be gay or bisexual. This could have been the studio's way of preventing a scandal and hiding the truth, as many did, by pairing him up with one of the beautiful young starlets of the day and encouraging a romance. Many years later, he would marry, although rumors would come out after Mitchell's death that he had a long-time relationship with dancer-choreographer Billy Daniel until his death in the 1960s. This same article where she's talking about her relationship with Mitchell, we get mention of her brother. The writer states a few days after the interview, he was in a drugstore on the boulevard having an ice cream soda when he heard a familiar voice from behind him. He said Marguerite came in with a good-looking youngster about 13 or 14. This was in 1922, so the age adds up. He then goes on to say she was laying down the law to him like a good fellow, that she was talking like the proverbial Dutch uncle, but the boy was taking it quite humbly. The writer then says it was the best big sister act I've ever seen put on. She was in such dead earnest about it. Evidently, her young brother had some respect for his sister and for her opinions as well. It seemed that Marguerite kept composing songs. Jackamammy Lullaby was already grabbed up by the music publishers and was becoming a mini success. In April of 1922, she submitted one of her works titled Mediterranean Moon, again to the music publishers. It was given the title after being premiered at the Club Royal. It was expected to be a hit, as motion picture orchestra leader Max Fischer was rumored to have had made her foxtrot into a feature number. Many of the Los Angeles cafe orchestras were playing her composition every night. In a later brief interview, Marguerite said she rattled the thing off at the Mayor's studio between scenes of The Famous Mrs. Fair, which she had started filming in the spring of 1922. I tried looking for this sheet music, but sadly I could not find it, as I would be interested in seeing it and possibly trying to play it a bit, although very badly. And just a side note, this isn't the same Mediterranean Moon as the group The Rays recorded in the 1950s. In spring of 1922, Marguerite, still a regular in the movie publications of the time, talked about her relationship with Frothingham called Me and My Boss. Here's an excerpt from the article. I am indeed fortunate in having a manager, mentor, and guardian combined in J.L. Frothingham, the well-known producer, who I induced to handle my affairs following the death of my parents 2 years ago. At that time, I was but 16 years of age and without any experience to speak of in the realm of pictures. True, I had done a little professional dancing, but of things cinematic, I was totally ignorant. Mr. Frothingham was producing a series of feature pictures for a large distributing company when I asked him to take me under his wing and handle my affairs. To this day, I do not know why he consented to my request, as I was an unknown without anything to recommend me as a potential photoplay star. But he did, and despite his numerous duties as a producer, he always found time to advise and encourage me and to negotiate my professional as well as personal business affairs. So J.L. Frothingham not only became a manager, a career coach, her guardian, but also, in a way, a father figure. Her next film to be released would be on September 24th, titled Fools of Fortune, a Western comedy that also starred Russell Simpson, Tully Marshall, and Frank Dill. There was no slowing down Marguerite. She was running back and forth between movie lots, composing music, and even getting prepared to take part in a huge one-night theater production. In early fall, it was announced that Maurice S. Campbell, a journalist, Broadway producer, and film director, would put on a huge event that would take place at the Hollywood Bowl. The large production of Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream would be a one-night gala and would benefit the Actors Fund of America. The fund was created to assist performers and behind-the-scene workers who fell on hard times and who were also living in poverty, helping out with everything from shelter in the actor's home, a facility where they could live and get treated if need be, to even proper burials. I found this article on the production, which took place October 7th, 1922. Marguerite is mentioned in the cast with a huge selection of many other familiar names. Wallace Beery, Jackie Coogan, Mary Miles Minter, Viola Dana, Patsy Ruth Miller, Marie Prevost, Agnes Ayres, Mae Murray, and even Colleen Moore. It was directed by Frederick Sullivan, and the Philharmonic Orchestra provided the music. Unfortunately, I was unable to find exactly what part Marguerite played. But with that many stars on one stage, one thing for sure, it must have been spectacular. The past few years found Marguerite starring with some of the best-known names on the screen. 1922 was no different. Shadows, released November 10th of 1922, starred none other than Lon Chaney. Chaney stars as Yen Sin, a hunchbacked Chinese stranger who lives in a village called Urke. Also living in the village is Sympathy Gibbs, played by Marguerite, with her abusive fisherman husband, Daniel Gibbs, played by Walter Long. Daniel Gibbs goes fishing with some other villagers, and their ship is lost in a storm. When there is a Christian service on the beach to honor those who are lost, Yen refuses to participate and is denounced as a heathen. Sympathy eventually develops a friendship with Yen after she defends him from kids taunting and bullying him. A romance develops between the new minister of the village, John Malden, played by Harrison Ford, and Sympathy. He then tries to convert Yin, who resists. Thankfully, this is a film that survives, so I won't spoil it for you. It's kind of ironic that Chaney plays a hunchbacked Chinese stranger, because one of the movies he was preparing to start filming was none other than The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Marguerite's last movie to be released this year was called The Jilt on November 13th, just 3 days after The Shadows release. Shows how hard they were working, the actors. The drama also stars Ralph Graves, Matt Moore, and was directed by Carl Laemmle for Universal Film. Marguerite, dancer, actress, music composer. Her star was shining alongside the big names on the silent screen, and her future seemed so bright. She would also fall in love, and it seemed she had a perfect life, almost a fairy tale. But how long would it last? Because remember, not all fairy tales have happy endings.